Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
I feel like I haven't seen you for like a week or something.
Do you think it's been that long, isn't it?
It's not like we weren't chatting like 5 minutes ago. Let's pretend that we weren't. Hello, and welcome to the 4th edition of With For About 2020. The music that you've just been listening to was from Blink Dance Theatre's Delson Weeks, a track called Space from his album Pull Up, which you can listen to on SoundCloud. Link going in the chat now. We'll be seeing and hearing more from Delson later, but seriously, do go and check out his music. I mean, just leave the conference now and just go and listen to that instead, because it's, it's really good.
Thanks, James.
Total confidence. So it's the 17th of June and the world has not ended, though it may feel like it has.
Okay, so we've been working really hard to make this final episode of this year's With For About 2020 COVID special, extra special, just for you.
This is our introduction bit, which will be brief, and then 14 films will be shown today. Don't worry, they're quite short. Before each film, we will introduce it, and then after each film, Cecilia and I will have a chat about what we've just watched. We'll also do a few shout outs, and we're also going to try and link all the conference work together that you've seen in a nice little bow. The show will last about 2.5 hours.
So yeah, welcome from us.
So you know what it is at this point. This is universally acknowledged best curator in the world ever, my co-curator and presenter of this slow conference for a fast evolving crisis. This is Cecilia. I'm still getting that wrong. Which, slow conference for a fast evolving crisis, which thanks to all the haters, this crisis has got a lot faster since we started 4 weeks ago.
Indeed. And this, I'm going to do both sides just in case, is my co-curator and presenter, the wonderful, fabulous and generous and beautiful, and look at that beautiful hair. Come on, give us a little 12. Yeah. James, vacuum cleaner, recognized as a case of mistaken identity. I'm going to get my words right for the next part and for the rest of this episode. So we also want to say a big welcome on behalf of the Heart of Glass. Heart of Glass are an agency for collaborative and social arts practice, and they're based in St. Helens in Merseyside. And With For About is their annual conference.
How has your week been, Cecilia?
Yeah, it's been okay.
That's a really convincing answer.
I would say sadness and rage and solidarity. Sadness that we're not going to be doing this again next week. Anyway, so welcome back. If you've been watching the previous 3 episodes, and hello to all of our new audience. If you're here for the first time, then please do take a moment to read our Safer Spaces boundaries. You can click the big button that says Safer Spaces boundaries below. And you can also watch all of the previous episodes on the previous episodes button on our website withforabout.com.
Yeah, also, as we say each week, but it's definitely worth repeating, take care whilst you're watching. Pause if you need to, get a glass of water, take a break, or reach out to somebody if you want to have a talk. You can use the chat function in the YouTube by just signing into your Google account, and you can do some chatting. And there are some content warnings this week. So this week we have work that explores deaths from COVID, racism, including racist attacks, anti-blackness, colonialism, choking and breathing, mental health discrimination, and ableism. And
some strong language. Oh, yeah. If there are technical issues with the live broadcast, then please click on the Twitter logo, which is above this video, and instructions will appear on the Twitter feed. This is like doing a little airplane like safety instructions, isn't it? If you are on social media, then you can follow us on the on the hashtag. Follow on the hashtag, which is with for about 2020. Yeah. So enough housekeeping. Onwards. Before we carry on with the flight and the journey, see where I'm going with that, James?
That was a good length. Well done.
Yeah. I wanted to start this week by giving a shout out to pandas, the video of pandas getting a bath. I mean, that's basically my mental health support at the moment.
Cool. So shout out to our human and non-human companions at this time.
Yeah. Shall we start with one of our favorite non-humans?
Yeah, let's do that.
Tell us, James, who is it?
Yeah, let's start with some Bella. So each week we have been joined by Bella and her human, Selina Thompson, to see how they're doing, how they're coping during lockdown. So let's go straight over to Birmingham's world famous cat.
I never did tell you Bella's routine. Well, she wakes up at 7 by getting in the bed and yowling in my ear and hitting me in the face. She has some food, usually beef wet food with chicken dry food. She does her rounds outside. At 7:30, she jumps through the window and will usually stare out of various windowsills for about 3 hours on and off. By 11, she'll need some attention, so we'll play. Her favourite toy at the minute is a pink fish on a fishing line. Then she sleeps from about 11:30 until 6:30. If she wakes up early, I'll give her some milk to drink. She'll usually go back outside again for an hour or so. So this is the time when she's most likely to get into a fight. At 8, she'll have the rest of her wet food. She'll sleep some more. Then at 9, she'll have a little bit more dry food in this ball that she sort of bats about. Then we'll play some more. I clean her tray, which she watches with disdain. At 11, she has some treats for hairballs, for her teeth, and this calming valerian stuff. And then she'll play frantically with a plastic mouse for an hour or so. Then at midnight, she comes and sits on all my yoga shit and hisses at me until I turn out the light so we can both go to sleep. And that's it. That's her day. That's our day.
Yay, Bella!
We love you, Bella. Gorgeous Bella. We'll be learning a lot more about Bella's life today as we go through the show.
So, as James mentioned, whilst you were waiting for us to begin this show, you were listening to the track Space, and now we're going to watch a little video from artist, musician, and magician Delson Weeks. And Delson is a learning disabled and non-verbal artist, and he makes beats and performs live. And during lockdown, he's been working on a magic show with his collaborator Vicky, and they're both from Blink Dance Theatre. So what we're sharing now is a piece called Magic Man, and here's Delson performing his magic for us. I'm just going to go straight to it, Carl. Thanks. So I'm actually going to go and listen to Delson Weeks. You're fine doing the rest of the show, right?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, in previous episodes, you've had to do it on your own. So, yeah, have a good afternoon. I really loved that. I think it's really special.
Yeah, me too. I've got a question for you, James. How is it possible that an artist as talented as Delson is not getting all of the gigs and all the commission money? Like, I don't understand how he doesn't have a record deal. I think isn't it an example of how ableist our society is?
Yeah, of course. It's like total BS. And like I've only been working with learning disabled artists and for about, I don't know, like 5 years or something, but it's been so clear for me that society is really just missing out on so much excellent work.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it makes me think about his work makes me think about how new aesthetics and ways of being and communicating are being pioneered by these artists. And I really love the way that Delson really plays and pushes with those forms and textures in his music and how he moves.
Right.
Yeah, so thank you to you, Delson, and also to your sister Taneka, who helped make this film, and big shout out to Blink Dance Theatre and other learning disabled companies who are doing this really pioneering work.
Yeah, so it's from one disabled artist superstar to another. This is a company that needs no introduction except to say that Jess has Tourette's, so there may be some language that you may deem offensive.
Space, the final fish finger. These are the voyages of the starship Biscuits. Its mission to explore our strange new reality. To boldly go where many crypts have gone before. Captain's log, stardate 2020.4. Reports of a deadly plague spreading across the galaxy have led us far from Earth, deep into the Biscuit Nebula, flung out into space, far from home. We have one mission: to survive. My name is Captain J.T. Hero. I'm a 30-something white woman with short, curly hair and a very cool spaceship. Biscuit, welcome aboard the Starship Biscuit. Over to you, Mr. Spork.
Very good, Captain.
Biscuit.
I'm Mr. Spork. I'm a brown man with a beard and a top knot. And I'm the ship's
Linguist, Rambo impersonator, Chief of Jelly, masturbating tortoise. You're the ship's Boris Johnson love child. I love Mr. Spork.
Hello, I'm Chief Navigator Clahora. I'm a 20-something white woman with long blonde hair.
And this is Monkey, the space cat. It's been 6 long weeks since we left the world as we know it. That's 42 days inside the Biscuit. Time is warping. Biscuit. And the TV is worse than it's ever been.
Now, more than ever,
We're here for you and your family.
Working hard.
in uncertain times,
And that's why, more than ever,
We're by your side.
every step of the way.
the Federation's been overrun by incompetent lizards. What little information we've got has been inept and contradictory at best.
Captain, we're receiving a new transmission from Admiral Bojo.
Don't go to work, go to work. Don't take public transport, go to work, don't go to work. Stay indoors. If you can work from home, go to work. Don't go to work. Go outside, don't go outside.
We're on our own, Mr. Spork. We're on our own.
While we may feel alone, Captain, this is a journey we're on together.
Very good, Mr. Spork. Clohora, set a course for Barnard Castle. Who wants to go Durham for a picnic? I want to go West Midlands Hospital, please. Hey, Clohora, your bum is showing. Mind the custard cream! Clohora, I want to go back into my mum's uterus. The best thing about space travel is the views. Biscuit, the view from my bedroom window used to seem still, but now my surroundings shimmer like electric snow. Some things pass us by, some things crash into us, some things just come along for the ride, like the trees and the lamppost and the cat. We've seen bad political choices, we've seen a whole heap of ketchup. We've seen Kate Moss riding a pink wafer into oblivion. We've seen a 14-inch carrot. We've seen the whole of Coronation Street reenacting a battle scene in 19th century France. We've seen Clinell wipes. Clinell! We've seen Pilates undertaken recklessly.
Time is ticking, Captain. How would you like to proceed?
I've got it, Mr. Spork. Biscuit, it's time to join forces, find solidarity, and be led by the knowledge of disabled people who've been navigating this space for generations. Break open the tea time selection, Mr. Spork. It's time to make sure everyone can share the biscuits, not just the crumbs.
I have to say, Captain, I am impressed.
Warp speed, Clohora.
Aye, Captain.
So,
Okay, it's all right. We're back on Earth.
thanks, Jess, and the rest of the Touretteshero crew who are in lockdown in the howling wilds of Peckham.
Shout out to fellow South Londoners.
Yeah, obviously the world has become more strange than one of Jess's ticks, which is an achievement. Boris Johnson's love child that's cold. That's really cold. Also, I wanted to do a special shout out to Touretteshero, who as a company have been doing one of my favorite projects during the COVID lockdown. So they asked me not to say too much, but just to say that they've been doing something super simple, logistically challenging, and way more radical than just being sat here on YouTube chatting. So big love to them for the service that they've provided to many, many, many disabled people across London who haven't been able to, who had to be really strict with their social contact, but still needed supplies. So big love to them for what they've been doing.
Yeah, big love to Jess and the team. As Jess says, disabled people have been navigating this space for centuries. Generations, centuries? Yes, we can say centuries, can't we?
I think so. I don't think there's any Roman reference.
Okay, so today in our conversations in between seeing works, we're going to do a little bit of reflecting on some of the key questions of With For About 2020 and what's happened in previous episodes. So I thought that maybe this would be a good chance to reflect not only on Jess's work, but also first of all, how lockdown and COVID is affecting disabled people, and secondly, the intersection between disability and Black Lives Matter. So yeah, tell us some of the depressing facts, James.
Okay. So we know that COVID kills people of colour and disabled people at a higher rate. We've seen the removal of the Care Act and changes to the Mental Health Act here in the UK. In the US, we know that half of the black men killed by the cops are disabled. And in the UK, people of colour are 4 times more likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act.
Are you hopeful about this situation?
Well, I think we've got to be really realistic, and I think that false hope is really toxic, and we have to be super mindful of that. But I also, obviously, as this is the last episode, we've been thinking about all the amazing activists and artists and academics who we've had in this conference space, and I can't help but think and know that there is real potential there, and how like A.M. Kangiza, whose work is sitting between disability justice and climate justice and centres Indigenous voices, or, the pioneers like Touretteshero or Delson or Disabled Avant-Garde, who've created these, really amazing new models around disability and support and mutual care.
Yeah, totally. And also there was Wiam and Rita and Hannah who were talking in episode 2 about spaces to look at like health, feminism and solidarity within capitalism, and in the context of kind of, I suppose, racist military occupation between Palestine and also in the UK.
Yeah, so shout out to all the pioneers, particularly those who are like first generation activists, the first people of the struggle. But I worry that these people aren't really getting the support that they deserve. Like, where's the rear guard, so to speak? Like, we've really got to step up and have people's backs on that front. But we can unpack that more and come back to that in a bit.
Yeah, sure. So speaking of pioneers, shall we go and see our friends Esenam and Cecilia? Yeah? So we're going to hear from Ghanaian mental health activists Esenam, Abra, Drah, and Cecilia Fofo Ashaley. And they've been interviewed by their friend Victoria Asamani about what their mental health activism and how COVID has affected their work.
Yeah, just to say that this film, which is made by Jason and Moo, they did have some sound problems while they were filming. It was quite a challenging film situation. We've tried to clean up as much as possible, but hopefully the subtitles will help a lot too. Hit it, Carl.
So I have with me here my friends Esenam and Cecilia. I'd like to welcome you, ladies. Okay, so I'd like to find out how you would define your mental health illness and how it has impacted your life, positively or negatively.
Okay, so I live with a condition called bipolar disorder. Positively, I would say that it's the reason why I'm a mental health advocate, and I'm going around telling people that they should end the stigma against mental health, and they should not deal with their mental health as something trivial. It's very, very important, because your mental health is like the center of everything. If your mental health is not in good condition, you can't do all the things that you want to do. So it's very, very important. Negatively, I've had my nasty share of stigma. I was stigmatized because I disclosed to a member of management that I live with bipolar disorder. Even though I said I was having it treated and all, I was fired from my job just 24 hours after I disclosed to that member of management. So I've had my nasty share of stigma.
How about you, Cecilia? Have you had the same experience?
Yeah, for me too. Just like I said, I think we have things in common. She be my friend as well. I think we have things in common because I was also laid off my job because of my mental health condition. Because they felt that I was endangered to the children, and then I need to just stop working with them to go home and take care of myself, because I couldn't work with me anymore. And for me, I would define my mental health condition as a mountain, because sometimes when you're on top of the mountain, you see everything and you feel you're on top of the world. But there are certain times when you come crashing down, you fall, and you feel you expose things you wouldn't have let somebody see when you have a relapse. So that has been my definition for my mental health. But positively, I have been able to engage with new people, met new people, new friends, and people like you, and organizations such as Baby Ghana, Mental Health Society of Ghana.
What does it mean to be a mental health advocate in Ghana?
Okay, in Ghana, last year in March, 25 of us were recruited as champions for Time to Change Global. Our work was to go around doing social contacts and fight against mental health stigma. So we've been doing the project from, like I said, last year in March till now, but it has come with a few challenges because now we can't do those things anymore. We can't organize the social contact events anymore. And during this COVID-19 period, I have had much more ample time. So it led me to create my own YouTube channel where I talk about my lived experience of bipolar disorder, and I tell people about my mental health journey and educate people more about mental health in general.
Because mental health has been associated with superstitious beliefs, most of the time the needed support is not given to mental health and the attention is drawn away from it because of the stigma and discrimination attached to it. So the needed support that is needed to be given to mental health is not there. Even when it comes to policy formulations and laws, the much attention is not given. For example, the budget allocation for mental health is very inadequate, and even the psychotropic medications are not also on the National Health Insurance Scheme. The National Health Insurance Scheme is an insurance scheme in Ghana where if you're on it, you can get yourself the medication without paying for it, provided you're on the insurance scheme. But they are not on it, and people cannot afford it. So even though you go out there to educate people that hey, mental health conditions are manageable, and with treatment and medication, you can go about your normal duties. Sometimes it becomes difficult for you to convince them that they can actually assess them, because when they realize that hey, I can now go for medication, where's the money for them to go in for those medications? Some of them are also very expensive. So,
and what changes do you think need to happen in Ghana to fight for mental health rights?
Okay, so first, my perception was that when you just mentioned mental health, I thought it was all about mad people. But after doing a lot of mental health advocacy for some time, I've realized that mental health, everybody has it. Once you have a brain and human body, you have mental health. And so mental health doesn't connote madness. We just sometimes have good mental health and bad mental health. But if you have bad mental health, it can be managed with treatment. And in Ghana, a lot of people stigmatize people with mental health conditions because once you have a mental health condition, people are thinking about how limited you are. You may not get married, you may not have a good job, you may not be successful. So it's very difficult here to say that you have a mental health condition and you think you can still be successful. But I believe strongly that mental health advocacy must continue. It doesn't matter what misconceptions and superstitious beliefs there are.
So what campaigns have you been working on during the pandemic period?
So for me, for my organizations, we collaborated, that is Biscuits Ghana collaborated with CSO platforms to support people living with mental health conditions as well as epilepsy with food items in the community, because most of them, due to the pandemic, cannot go about their normal duties in order to take care of themselves as well as their family members. So we supported people with mental health conditions as well as epilepsy with food items. Not only that, we also, in collaboration with UKD, also supported people with mental health conditions as well as epilepsy and their caregivers with some cash grants.
Esenam, what have you also been up to?
Okay, in Ghana, there's a ban on public gatherings, and so we can't continue with our social contact events. Social contact events are where we meet people who do not have any knowledge about mental health. and we as champions educate them using our lived experiences and also give them resource materials on mental health. We can't do that anymore, so we decided to take our project online by going to radio stations and TV to just educate people using our lived experience. We thought about taking it like online through social media. I realized that it's going to be very, very expensive because not everybody has a smartphone, and in Ghana data is very, very expensive. So our cheapest and a little bit expensive way of doing this is through TV and radio. That's the only way we can continue this message of mental health in this crisis.
Okay. So how can the people watching support you and support what you do, your advocacy work?
So for me, for the government of Ghana, I wish that the psychotropic medications could be placed on the national health insurance scheme so that everybody can access, people like me can access it freely without stress. And then the budget allocated for mental health should be increased and should be enforced so that people like me will be able to enjoy the facilities without any inconveniences. And people watching us from outside the also can come in to donate to support people with mental health conditions, epilepsy, and other psychosocial disabilities as well.
Okay.
Would you like to share anything?
I think my YouTube channel is All Things Bipolar Disorder. You can subscribe so that you receive notifications anytime I post a new video.
So kindly subscribe, All Things Bipolar Disorder. So we've come to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for watching, and do enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Esenam, Cecilia, Victoria, and Jason.
Thank you. Yeah. So, James, you describe yourself as a mental health activist, and we were talking like before about how the work that Esenam and Cecilia are doing is really groundbreaking. Break it down for me, please.
So, like, I guess just to give some context, like that we've learned in terms of, you know, by chatting to them, the kind of conversations in mainstream culture about mental health in Ghana are relatively new, kind of 2 or 3 years old. So that, you know, it's important to see it in that light. And also a lot of the laws around, you know, definitions of disability actually come from the UK colonial times. So suicide being illegal, epilepsy being considered a mental health condition. So, you know, I'm like a 3rd or 4th generation mental health activist with lived experience here in the UK. So I've got that history to draw on. I've got other people that have pioneered the way for me to make a stand. I've had, like, you know, radical psychiatrists, R.D. Lang, Mad Pride. I've got all of that. And I think whilst there's still stigma and discrimination in the UK, it's just, you can't compare the two things. So for them, you know, for them to be, you know, the first generation of people to speak out about their mental health disabilities and to do that so publicly, you know, to be going on TV, to be putting it on social media, for Esenam to be making this YouTube channel, it's so phenomenal. I'm so in love with them. They're so amazing. Like, I've got so much love for them. I'm so I can't like big it up enough because I couldn't do what they've done. No,
it's really hard. Yeah, I can
really
see.
Amazing.
I get it exactly. That it must be really, really hard to, like, you know, there's a lot of barriers, like building a context, building that kind of language, building a community that really understands what you're doing, and then also thinking about access, like using, you know, thinking about which media you're going to use and how you're going to share that and everything. Like, how do you break it down to people? It's just, there's a lot of work that they're doing. There's a lot of amazing work that they're doing, and they're traveling around like different countries in sub-Saharan Africa as well to spread the message, right? So yeah, I feel like definitely this idea of pioneering work and thinking about the future of activism, as well as learning from the histories and the rights and the justice that activists have worked on in the past, is something that we're kind of like coming back to quite a few times in this episode, like the time machine traveling through space. Anyway,
can I do some shout outs?
Please do.
So I wanted to do a shout out on Instagram to Psychosocial Africa, who are a mental health support group, started in Ghana but spreading all across, and that's led by Abina Ado, who is a super inspiring, amazing mental health activist in Ghana. Like, I've been following her for like 3 years, and her story is phenomenal. Like, the journey that she's been on is really amazing. Also, shout out to the Mental Health Society of Ghana. You can find them on itcouldbeyou.com.gh.
And I wanted to give a shout out to Esenam's YouTube channel, all things bipolar disorder, because I just really love the way that she breaks it down, and it feels like a really honest chat with her friends. Like, you know, she'll either be doing a little explanation of some of the things and some of the experiences that she's had, or like she'll just invite one of her friends round to have a glass of non-alcoholic wine and tell some stories together about bipolar and her symptoms and the experiences that she's had. So yeah, shall I tell you about the next group of badass women that we're going to hear from?
Of course, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So now we're going to join Hwa-Young and Youngju Kim and Ahreum Woo. And they are 3 people working in the arts, all currently in Seoul in South Korea. And Hwa-Young is usually based in Liverpool, Youngju is usually based in Cologne, and Ahreum lives in Seoul. So they met up a couple of weeks ago to chat about COVID and the arts and racism and how they're dealing with it all. So just to say that they're speaking in Korean and the video is going to be subtitled in English. Please play this, Carl.
여기는 서울, 강남이고요. 저는 계속 한국에서 있었고, 정 작가님은
2월 8일 날 독일 켈른에서 왔어요. 온 지 한 2달.
저는 영국에서 3월 23일 날 피난 왔어요.
얼마 만에 한국 오신 거예요?
14년.
14년 만에. 이렇게 오래 한국에 있은 지는
지금
14년
2달 됐는데 이렇게 오래 있는 적 처음이에요.
영주 씨는?
저는 뭐 독일 간 지는 6년 좀 넘었는데 1년에 한 번씩 정도는 한국에 왔었던 것 같아요. 근데 저도 이렇게 오래 있어 본 거는 되게 오랜만에. 저는 일단 뭐 예정되어 있던 전시나 이제 프로젝트들이 많이 미뤄지고 독일로 갈 수가 없는 상황이 돼버리니까 마음이 너무 급해진 거예요. 여기 한국에 있는 게 장기화될 수 있겠다라는 생각이 들어서. 언니도 프로젝트 많이 미뤄졌잖아요.
다
영국에서.
연기됐어요. 다 연기되고 취소되고. 그래서 마음 놓고 온 것도 어차피 영국에 있어도 일이 없기 때문에 여름옷도 안 갖고 오고.
나도 여름옷 없어.
제가 요즘 방 정리 중이거든요. 한 2-3개씩 드릴게요. 반팔 티셔츠.
근데 막상 여기 오니까 그래도 내가 아직 여기 시민권이 여기 있으니까 이런 정부 지원금 같은 거를 다 받을 수가 있어서 그 독일에 있었으면 더 큰일 날 수도 있겠다 그런 생각도 들고, 왜냐면 한국도 보니까 외국인들은 또 그 정부 지원금에서 좀 제한이 되는 게 있고,
맞아요.
막 이민 온 사람들이나 유학생이나 혹은 뭐 난민들이나 그런 어려움들이 많고, 그래서 바깥에서 이제 살면서 우리 그런 경험들 많이 하잖아요. 이렇게 외부인, 내 집은 저기 있는데도 외부인처럼 막 이렇게 살아야 되는 그런 거를 조금 덜 겪게 되기는 해요. 한국에 와서 있는 바람에. 더 걱정되는 게 코로나 때문에 이제 못 들어가곤 있지만 약간 다행이다 싶은 게 이제 제가 직접적으로 당한 적은 없지만 그래도 그런 얘기가 되게 많았잖아요. 떠나기 전날에 친구가 그러더라고요. 어저께 뭐 중국마트에서 이제 그 가지 말라고 뭐 그런 소문을 들었다 뭐 이런 거. 그래서 왜냐면 원래 살 때도 언니 긴장하면서 살지 않았어요 좀? 약간 그런 게 있었어요. 약간 감으로 저 특정한 어떤 그 바나 저 구역은 가지 말아야 되겠다, 내가.
감이 발달하는군요.
그런 이제 감이 발달해서, 괜히 저기 가서 분란을 일으키지 말아야 되겠다라는 이런 게 있고, 약간 이제 다른 어떤 공공장소를 가더라도 약간 나도 모르게 이렇게 조심하게 되고, 약간 긴장하게 되고 이런 게 있는데, 이제 그런 게 코로나로 인해서 더 심각해지면 어떡하나, 이제 돌아가서.
이미 심각해진 것 같아요. 그리고 나도 영국에 살 때 항상 그런 그 투구를 입고 있다는 거를 여기 와서 알게 됐어요. 너무 평상시에 일상화되어가지고 내가 그 짐을 싣고 있다는 거를 몰랐어요. 여기 오기 전까지.
맞아요. 그런 차별에 내가 매번 민감한 것도 나한테 나의 생존을 위협하는 요소가 되니까 무뎌지는
피곤해.
거죠.
피곤해.
그냥 셔터를 내리는 거지. 근데 사실 한국에 와서 그걸 느낀다는 거는 슬픈 일이지만 어떻게 보면 회복되고 있는 걸 수도 있지 않을까?
내가 속한 그룹이 또 동양인 여자가 나 혼자인 경우가 항상 많고, 게임 쪽은 그걸 공부했기 때문에 특히 더 그래서 어디를 가든 되게 안 튀려고 동양 여자인 척을 안 하려고 이렇게 그러려고.
가능한가요?
안 가능한데
가려?
뭔가 이게 클리셰처럼 느껴지는, 그들이 생각하는 클리셰처럼 느껴지는 행동이나 말을 하지 않으려고 되게 애를 쓰고, 작업을 할 때도 내 정체성이 이제 확연히 드러나는 걸 오히려 되게 안 하려고. 그러니까 왠지 내가 이런 사람들의 대표성을 띌까봐 되게 조심하면서 작업을 했던 것 같아요.
나도 내 작업도 그 딱 보면은 어느 나라 사람인지 여자인지 남자인지 알 수 없게 일부러
굉장히 중립적인 주제와 톤을 정하게 되는 건가요?
아니요, 그런 건 아닌데 그 인종에 관한 아이덴티티로 작업이 주요가 아니에요. 그러니까 나는 그 주로 여러 사람들과 일하기 때문에 그 사람들의 관심사를 토대로 작업을 하지, 내가 어떻게 동양인 여자로서 살아가는지 그런 거에 대한 작업을 일부러 안 하려고 그랬어요. 내가 한국 여자를 대표할 수 없다고 생각하기 때문에.
근데 저는 되게 흥미로웠던 게 두 분 다한테서 그런 그 두 분 다의 작업에서 느꼈던 건데, 작가님도 예를 들면 집행유예 프로젝트도 그렇고, 사실은 한 사회에서 좀 마이너리티에 속하는 집단과 함께 또 그들의 어떤 입장을 위한 작업이라고 볼 수 있는 거잖아요. 또 영주 작가님도 게임 속에서 어떤 세계를 이룰 때 어떤 사람들을 위해서 또 어떤 식으로 돌아가는 세계를 구상하는가에 있어서 두 분의 어떤 관점이나 이런 게 드러날 수밖에 없게 되지 않나 라는 생각도 좀 들고,
드러날 수밖에 없는데 그게 이제 한국에서 온 여자애가 만든 거다라는 클리셰가 조금이라도 보일까봐 이제 검열을 막 하는 거지. 최대한 다양한 어떤 톤들을 담기 위해서 노력을 했던 것 같아요. 내가 생각보다 그 인종차별에 대한 스트레스가 되게 많았구나. 그게 조금씩 이제 그런 걸 깨닫고 있어요. 언니 영국서 주로 싸웠어요? 싸운
것 같아.
싸운 것 같아.
아니, 안 싸웠어. 나 그냥 그 얘기 들으면은 그냥 그날 따라 그날 내가 에너지 있으면은 뭐라고 대꾸하거나 아니면 그냥 무시하거나. 근데 그게 좀 겁나. 싸우기가 두려워.
나는 낯선 사람이면은 아무 말도 안 해요. 무서우니까. 근데 이제 아는 사람이면 남은 에너지를 끌어 모아서 얘기를 해줘. 그게 아니라고.
난 귀찮아. 내 몫이 아닌 것 같아.
근데 일단은 사실은 내가 괜찮은 게 제일 좋은 것 같아. 일단 그게 되게 존중이 돼야 될 것 같고, 그래서 내 컨디션에 따라서 어느 날은 반응하고 어느 날은 안 한다는 것도 저는 되게 좋은 방법일 수 있는 것 같고, 근데 또 영주 작가님은 이 사람과 나의 관계를 생각했을 때 혹은 그 사람의 어떤 내 주변에 이런 사람
관계보다도 이 다음에 올 또 다른 동양 여자애가 같은 말을 듣게 하기가 너무 싫은 거예요.
그거는 정말 남을 배려 많이 해주는 거다.
아니 왜냐면 누군가는 알려줘야 되는데.
맞아요. 아니 그것도 되게 좋은 연대 의식이라고 저는 생각해요.
아니 그렇게 대단하게 생각하는 거 아니고.
근데 왜냐면 내가 겪은 이 어려움을 내 다음 사람은 겪지 않게 해주려는 마음인 거잖아요. 그래서 이제 하는 건데, 근데 이 부분에 대해서 생각을 하게 되는 것 같아. 그런 말을 들을 때 그 상대방이 받아들일 수 있느냐를.
그래서 농담으로 이렇게 살짝 둘러서 가르쳐 주려고 할 때도 있는데 같이 웃고 있어, 같이. 그럴
세상에.
그럴 때는 이거 어떻게 하지?
어떻게 하지? 다시 정색해야 되나?
다시 말을 똑바로 해야 되나?
그거 너무 슬픈데요? 비극인데요?
그 모르는 사람이면은 그럴 때도 있는데 내가 특히 이게 여러 사람들이랑 작업하다 보니까 그런 작업 장소에서 나오면은 정말 혼란해. 어떻게 돼요? 내가 일하는 사람들이니까 같이 일하는 사람들.
맞아요.
그때가 제일 이 상황을 어떻게 극복해야 될지 고민을 많이 하게 되는 것 같아요.
맞아요. 근데 나는 주로 그냥 정색하고 말하는 편이 많았던 것 같아. 그래서 제일 친한 친구랑 싸운 적도 있고 그때 영국 갔을 때 싸운 적도 있는데 근데 여전히 제일 사랑하는 친구지. 제일 사랑하는 친구인데 그때 그냥 그런 거를 느꼈던 것 같아요. 그러니까 딱 그 입장이 되지 않고서는 이렇게 완전하게 모르는 거고 나도 그 점을 또 생각하면서 얘기를 해야 되겠다. 근데 나는 한국에 있을 때도 똑같이 해요. 그 사람들이 특히 여기는 다 우리가 마조리티에 속해 있기 때문에 모르고 하는 말들 있잖아요. 그걸 꼭 중국 바이러스라고 부른다든지 뭐 저쪽 동네는 중국인이 많이 사니까 거기 가지 마라 그러면 그런 식으로 말하지 말라고 정색을 하긴 해. 근데 계속 몰라 이런 방법이 좋은지 안 좋은지 모르겠지만 계속 그 자각을
아니 그래서 내가 작업을 통해서 이런 걸 풀려고 해.
그치.
개인 생활에서 하기 힘든 거를 작업을 통해서 하려고 해.
그러니까 네가 잘못했어가 아니라 어떤 공동적인 사안에 대해서 막 이야기를 하면서 그냥 알아서 좀 깨우치게끔.
맞아.
그런 거잖아요. 사실
놀면서 이렇게.
사실 왜냐면, 그러니까 나하고는 다른, 특히 마이너리티를 대하는 그 감수성은 한번 그 문제에 대해서 내가 한번 찔려봐야지 그게 생기는 거잖아요. 그게 막 자긴 재밌자고 하는 농담인데. 너 그거 하나도 안 재밌고 너 그거 되게 잘못한 거야 라고 말을 내가 들었을 때
맞아.
되게 창피하고 막 그러지 말아야지 라는 마음이 들기도 할 수 있지만 이런 좀 중립적인 지대를 놓고 이야기를 모으는 것도
좀 안전한
그 감수성을 키워줄 수 있는 안전한 지대? 부수고 새로 짓는 게 과연 능사일까? 라는 생각이 드는 거예요. 왜냐면 이게 되게 직접적인 은유여서 제가 그렇게 느끼는 걸 수도 있는데 그러니까 특히 한국은 다 새로 지은 건물들이거든요. 그리고 저는 이렇게 계속 새 집을 짓고 계속 그 집주인을 바꾸고 이런 과정들이 근대에 계속 이루어져 온 과정이라고 생각하고 그 과정의 끝에 이런 어려움도 있는 것 같거든요. 자꾸 무너져 내리고. 그랬을 때 그냥 일단 있는 집들은 두고 우리가 어떻게 이 공간을 나눠서 쓸 건지를 보드게임을 하면서
나는 한국이 마스터가 바뀐 적이 없다고 생각해. 그리고
한국의 마스터는 누구야? 누구라고 생각해?
남자들. 두 분 어떻게 코로나가 저물고 나면 돌아가실 계획이세요?
여러 곳이 없다니까. 가기는 가야 돼요. 집이가 아직 거기 있고 가기는 가야죠. 언제 가실 거예요?
안전하면. 그게 언제 될지 모르겠어요. 근데
그 안전의 판단은 어떻게 해야 될까요?
일단
Thank you, Young, Youngju and Ahreum. What do you reckon, James?
I mean, I feel like the video is really clear. Like they're being very precise in what they're saying, but yeah, and I really love the honesty about it. But obviously, I know Young fairly well, but I wasn't really aware of how much of a guard she had up when she was in the UK, and I really appreciate the honesty that they're all speaking with, and just learning about all the different ways that people are coping. Anyways,
like when I watch this video, then every time I watch this video and they make a statement, I'm like, yep, agree with that. Yep, felt that one before, definitely. So yeah, respect to all three of them. I think it's really difficult to have, it feels really difficult to have those sorts of conversations, and particularly to share them in public. So I also wanted to big up Hwa-Young's work. So they do a lot of work on probation reform, and Hwa-Young wanted to bring our attention to the work of Abolitionist Futures, and they've put together a brilliant reading list on a future without policing and prisons. So yeah, you can see that on abolitionistfutures.com. And usually throughout the show, I do loads and loads of links to items on our reading and viewing list. I just wanted to remind everyone that there's loads of goodies in there. Just click the big button, reading list, on our website with4about.com.
So if we go back to the original question that we wrote when we were developing the conference, that question was, what creative solutions have marginalized people developed to survive before COVID-19? Are there any kind of key examples of survival strategies that we have seen or are still going to see in this conference space?
I think one of the big themes that we've been exploring in different ways is what care looks like. So, for example, the types of mutual care that Cassie Thornton spoke about in episode 1, when she was reflecting on her project, The Hologram, and also the Greek model of care. And then, like last week in episode 3, we had Fox Irving talking about the artist as care worker, or working within caring contexts. And also in episode 3, we had Swasi Mears-Clark's beautiful projects, and those really kind of like develop this integrated, inclusive strategies, and from a trans and Black experience and perspective, which I think is really amazing.
I've been thinking like about this kind of critical understanding of self-care, and that versus collective or mutual models of care, and that's been represented really beautifully for me in Black Power Naps. So this bottom-up model of care that's linked to about leadership of the most affected and dealing with this constant institutional failure.
Constant institutional failure. Yeah, I think that breaking through that sort of idea of constant institutional failure is something that is central to like Jessie Presley Jones's film that we're going to be seeing later on this episode. And I think it's really obvious that like we can't really rely on top-down models to be progressive or even effective.
The thing you've been saying to me over the last 3 weeks is about you being asked to be white people's teachers, and we refound this quote that felt really pertinent to that point that I'd like to share, if that's all right.
Please do.
So it says, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together. And that is, it's usually attributed to Lilla Watson, but actually the quote, it just comes through them, and it actually comes from a group of Aboriginal activists from Queensland in the 1970s, apparently. So I feel like that really speaks to a lot of what the conference is speaking to.
Yeah, definitely. And when I think about this idea of our liberty being bound together, it relates to what Neil Bartlett was saying about getting in the room with history. So it's really important for us to kind of like keep creating these self-determined spaces for collective action.
Yeah, but okay, like enough serious chat. Can we have some cats, please? Which is the cue for Selina and Bella. Carl, hit it.
Bella was found when she was a kitten in a box with the rest of her litter and her mum. They'd been abandoned in a park and her stomach was all swollen with worms. The person that found her brought her to her old human, Máirín, and Máirín got the rest rehomed but couldn't bear to part with Bella, so took her home and healed her. She's really loving but still quite a nervous girl, very brave. When you were scared of everything, you have to be brave all the time. She had a couple of kittens before I met her, but had pretty difficult births, so it's good that she's spayed now. She had to leave her old home because Máirín went from having 3 cats to 5, and it was too much for B. Right. Sorry, she just fell off the chair. And she was getting bullied. She was getting bullied by the other cats, or staying out and getting into danger to get away from them. Bella likes peace and quiet. When I first went to see her, she wouldn't come out, and I really admired how good she was at hiding. When I went to bring her home, she made a terrible noise when we put her into her little carry case. I've never forgotten it. When she first came home, she scrunched her body into the corner of the room, and it was like she was trying to climb up the walls. I understood this fear, and I knew I had to be patient around it, but I was so sad that I had caused her to feel such fright. I am struck always by how, even now, 6 months into owning her, there are still milestones. First time using the cat flap, first time sleeping not under the bed, first time sleeping on my lap. These milestones only require patience from me, but from Bella they require intense courage, as well as trust and vulnerability. I find this deeply humbling.
Thanks, Bella. Thank you, Selina. I feel like we can learn a lot from Bella.
Yeah, thank you, Selina. I didn't think it was be the cat video that got me this week, but it has. Because I'm thinking about like second chances and what it means to be healed and the process of healing that, like, obviously I've been on in my life around my mental health, but also the process of healing that society is going on at the moment, and the work that, you know, when damage has been done to you, that journey that you have to go on is epic and long, and it's so beautiful that Selina is there for Bella to support her in a journey of healing, and that's just been beautifully shown in a beautiful cat video. So it means a lot to me, that journey. Thank you, Selina.
Totally, yeah. I'd like to actually move on to the next video. Should we just do that?
Yeah, we've got a lot
today, so and we have some more time with Bella later as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, but first we have Marjorie Morgan, and Marjorie is an artist and writer based in Liverpool, and she's made this beautiful film which reflects her experience of growing up in England. So I think we're just going to watch it now. Thanks, Carl.
These are the notes of a native daughter who was born a stranger in her own village. My mental adaptation began before I existed. Parents with barrels of nothing but hopes and dreams heard the call from a self-styled mother country. Obey, mother. Migration, though forcefully inherited, appealed more than the pockets of poverty distributed by the paleness of the retreating empire. Even the lushness of the Blue Mountains had no power over the hunger that gnawed inside. This is London calling. Ready or not, the transplant took place, grafting into the stony Wiltshire community as James Bond took up residence in the maternal homestead of St. Mary's, Jamaica. History repeating itself with a strange, crossing of nautical fortunes. Live and let die, and Dr. No soaked up the sun, while my altered family repelled barbed comments and cold shoulders in daily battles to stay afloat. I began my own journey tethered to foreign lands I did not know, always foreign to someone, foreign to a neighbour, foreign to a new teacher, foreign to every employer, foreign to my family, foreign to myself. My skin was a passport to nowhere in my home country. This is Africa calling. Go back home, you don't belong. Obey the mother country. Around the fireplace through gritted teeth, they tell us, wait, have patience, we were called. They were handcuffed to an illusion. They tell us, we will obey. I decide to find the key. First, I pause to listen with mother. Weaving words through the air as my mother's sewing machine hummed behind me, I drifted into a false pocket of peace. There I found new words that felt like velvet in my mind and silk on my skin. Cautiously my tongue tried them. Joyous laughter rose from the middle passage as I discovered the key that opened the doors to the past and the future. Time lost all shape as I stumbled upon parts of myself deep in the centre of strong-spined, gold-embossed books. I decided to stay. Looking into the mirror of the never-ending pages, I was free to adventure, to laugh, love and live, to be all of me that you said I could be. At the new dawn, a siren sounds in my soul. This is Africa calling. Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Jah Rastafari. Wait, stranger danger. I cry in the West Country wilderness for years as I don't recognize your voice. My English miseducation instructs me to fear you, to fear me, to fear everything I can be. Without knowledge, I had no name for the bias, the prejudice, the absent voices in the literature that was shaping my West Country world. Yet one day, I reawakened to myself and decided to go home. I begin my journey carrying the salty tears of my ancestors in my heart across the perilous seas, to the familiar feelings hidden deep, to the red dirt beneath my bare feet, to the family who embraced me with the melodious "Welcome home, sister," when I step onto the continent, the true mother country. I have travelled further than I knew. I have come home to myself. The mirrored fear projected onto me is shattered into insignificant pieces, igniting the pen and ink handcuffs of skewed structured power created to replace the metal shackles designed to block black dreams at every turn. Welcome home. Welcome home, welcome home. Beaming as I settled in, I vowed never to leave the safety of words and new worlds, my worlds. I remembered the childhood times of weaving words through the air. Listen to mother and father. Listen to the wisdom from the elders. They know it takes a village to raise a child. Listen to the stories of uprooting people and planting divisions across the oceans. Listen to the stories. Listen. From these words I have made mirrored worlds of the many crooked histories we have lived. From these words I am born again. I newly understand the language of my parents, morphed into magical shapes, caressing my heart and drawing vivid pictures of my past before I had a present. Remember that the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Teachers come from the four winds of the earth in every colour, each bearing tools of the trade for soul wanderers to protect their sacred path, for the game of life is run by invisible rules. Rules that alter without warning, rules that slam doors in front of the truth seekers, rules that erase whole nations. One rope, one whip, one bullet, one knee at a time. Dodging the many constructed avenues of death and destruction transfers the external inside, as thicker barbed comments and broader cold shoulders materialize with every year that passes. Each birthday means more meanness in the daily battles to stay afloat. This is England, Great Britain. So great it created, so great it imported, so great it exported hatred of blackness into every corner of the empire. This is England, Great Britain. So great was the need for tea, sugar, cotton. So great was the greed for gold, diamonds, oil. It manufactured a global pandemic that persists half a millennium later, built on the British bankers' secret slogan that black lives do not matter, so must be controlled by bold misconceptions, must be contained by undue criminalization, must be misdirected by miseducation of even quiet moonrakers. This is England, my England. As the bloodied sun sets in the west, I remember I was miseducated to believe the world is not my oyster. It is merely the reflection of the white, bright moon in the midnight lake. So I have tended my own light and made my own fire.
Thank you, Marjorie. And shout out to Marjorie's son Gabe for filming and the painstaking editing process for that work. Yeah. And shout out to all of the contributors who are watching live and who are on the YouTube chat right now as well. James, what do you love about that piece?
I mean, I love it because I've watched it like 4 or 5 times now, and every time I'm watching it, I'm learning stuff. I'm learning shit from it, whether that is an understanding of British colonial history or what the embodied experience for Marjorie to grow up in the UK is like. I'm drawn to the line, my skin is a passport to nowhere in my own country. That's just like a dagger to my heart, that line is. It's so devastating. So yeah, well, like, what is the embodied experience of anti-blackness on a personal level? Because obviously, I hope, like a lot of other white people, we've been reading a lot and trying to educate ourselves more and get more on top of this stuff. But to know what that's like on a really human level is really, really important. I love that it really directly speaks to the sense of not belonging. and what that means, and that links to like what why Jung and Youngju and Ahreum are talking about in their film. But also I love it aesthetically. Like, it's beautifully made, it's beautifully written, it's beautifully performed, the images of the family, and just this kind of this construction of like British culture and Black British culture, and then you start to see the emergence of the crossover points between them. And you're well more versed in this than I am. Like, what am I missing?
I wouldn't say that I'm way more well versed. I mean, you pretty much said like everything, but I wanted to share a different aspect, which was that Marjorie was a Windrush child in the 60s. So for our non-UK audience, the Windrush was one of the ships that brought migrant workers from the British colonies, mainly the Caribbean and former British colonies, between the 50s and the 70s. And I feel like the stories and experiences of women, particularly Black women from that generation, are not visible enough. So it's really valuable to get Marjorie's perspective. And like, my dad came to London from Singapore around a similar time. And so I know that people of Marjorie's parents' generation were pioneers, not in the sense that they weren't the first non-white people by any means, obviously, but that all of the challenges that they faced have made it possible for Black British culture or Asian British culture to be possible today. And it makes me think of the work of the activists and the writers and the artists who grew up in the 60s and 70s and created things like the Black Arts movement, that have been so pivotal to the consciousness of Black and brown cultural workers today. And so that's why I think it's really, really important for us to kind of like look back at those histories and remember and seek the richness of those histories.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing as well. That means a lot.
And you too, James.
I feel like
all the things that you like that you bring too.
But I feel like we could chat about this for the next like 3 hours, because I think we're both on a learning journey, and that's like, I feel that's really, I've really valued that. However, for time, we're going to move to the next film, but it links. It's not like this, because this is like, it's like curated, so things link and stuff. So our next film is from Bobby Baker, who's still a woman. And I think it links in terms of like pioneering of a woman in the arts and a disabled person in the arts, and thinking about where power lies.
Should we watch it?
I mean, world famous Bobby Baker, of course we should.
Let's do it, Carl.
Hello, Bobby Baker here, not a man. I'm really pleased to be here as part of the Heart of Glass conference with For About, to give my opinion about the 3 questions that have been asked. I'm going to go through the questions one by one, but first of all, I'll explain that I'm living alone here in London during COVID-19, so I'm doing all this myself, but I do have 2 companions. I have my friendly Biscuit here, who's very keen to assist with artistic ventures, but sadly my other companion, Roxy, does absolutely nothing to help and is only interested in herself. But Biscuit and I are going to do our best. So now the questions. The first one: what creative solutions have marginalised people developed to survive before COVID-19? Well, I can only talk about myself, and how am I marginal? Because I am, after all, white and middle class, and I've always been aware that there's been a lot of privilege in my life, but I am a woman, and a lot of very difficult things happened in my early life. I decided I want to be an artist from early on, and I was delighted to go to art school when I was 17. I went to St Martin's School of Art, but when I got there, I discovered that girls like me, nice girls, weren't supposed to be artists. We could dabble in it a bit. That was at the back of it. You could marry a tutor, have their children, support them. That was the gist of it. It was very male. It was very elitist. I couldn't fit in. But then I had a creative solution. I decided to make art out of food. It was really thrilling. Initially it was cake. I moved on to all sorts of other food throughout the years. This is me now. I'm a butternut squash. I'm sort of rounded and quite wholesome and very useful, really. This comes from Marks and Spencer's food hall, so it's a nice, short, stocky one. My creative solutions in my 20s, to being female, were I made a life-size version of my family out of cake. I lived in a prefab in East London, and I opened it to the public, and I made this big family out of cake, and all the local people came and ate the cake. It was very popular, but a bit marginal because not many people knew it was going on. But still, my work did gradually get to be known. But then, in 1980, I had the first of 2 children, and really, you couldn't be an artist and have a baby. It was sort of, how? So I became so marginal, I vanished for a while, but I did come back and I started making work about being a mother and daily life, which I thought was rather important. So I did all sorts of things. One idea I had was I opened my kitchen to the public in 1991. I carried on then opening kitchens in other parts of the world. I wanted to show how creative how it is in a kitchen. One of my creative acts was to hurl a pear against a distant wall in moments of intense rage. I started touring all over the world, but the trouble with that is the money's very unreliable and not great, and we had financial worries and children, so it was extremely pressurised and stressful, and my mother cracked up, and all the troubles from my early life came back to haunt me somehow, so I cracked up ultimately, and then I really did become marginal because I became mud of the mental health system. I got a psychiatric diagnosis. Well, I got several actually, and that really means, you know, it's sort of, people are not very keen to see you. So quite marginal. But I came up with creative solutions for that. One of them was I did the show called Pull Yourself Together, where I was on the back of a flatbed truck and I was driven around London shouting at people to pull themselves together. I've done that in a few cities since. And then in 2004, I invented my own therapy empire. I was a bit sick by then of all these therapies to sort me out because I'd become really expert in myself. So I had my own empire, How to Live. And I also made my drawings public, my diary drawings that I made while I was mentally ill and while I was getting better, actually. So I did a lot, but the trouble was that psychiatric medication makes you put on a lot of weight quite often, and I've got really bad arthritis, so my legs collapsed out, and you don't get seen as being a person, so they miss physical illness. So since 2003, I've had 12 lots of surgery. I've been in and out of hospital, chemotherapy, all sorts of things, breast cancer, arthritis. And so I'm really creatively resolved as to how to be at home recovering. And mostly, I have to say, it's watching the television. So there we are now. Just like to draw your attention to the status quo. This is the status quo here on this tractor tray. The thing is that if you've got creative solutions from marginalised people, who's noticing what's going on, apart from being perhaps a bit of a joke item or, you know, entertaining people. So the status quo, until fairly recently, has been quite a lot of... This would be, say, sort of a board meeting. So you've got Melton Mowbray pork pies. They all like to wear the same clothes. They've all got suits on. There's quite a lot of them. And then they went to public school. And these are sausage rolls. Can you see? Sausage rolls. Handcrafted sausage rolls. And handcrafted vegetarian cheese curds. But they're all pretty uniform, really. These ones went to a state school. And then we've got some women. We've got some women who like to wear, again, fairly similar clothes, generally with a bit of makeup, a bit of a high heel. All the same people sitting around the table. So we get, got somebody a bit unusual coming in here. Somebody who doesn't quite look the same, just squeeze in, disabled person. And then we've got a young, talented person. And one more, just to be safe. Yes, one more. So we've probably got about quarter women. Although actually, we're getting there. We're getting there. And so if that's the status quo, and then there's marginalised people doing really exciting, creative things, nobody knows they're there. I mean, they certainly... No, never got in there, never been in there. So that's one thing before we move on to the next question. Next question. What creative ways of being and organising are being made now in response to COVID-19? I've got some ideas. So I'm just going to show you, look, we've got COVID-19. It's terrible, people stuck indoors, isolated, stuck on their own in a better state, but gradually creative solutions are coming. First of all, people reaching out. We've got some experts, some really good souls here. Marvellously wise pepper and a very, very smart onion. Chilies, we've got those. So they're reaching out to people. What we've got is little groups of people gathering together who are marginalised and sharing solutions on social media and mutual support. We have got some emergency funding coming in from various sources, including the Arts Council, which in this country we're fortunate to have. But certainly there's an awareness that people are out there and great talent and great ideas going on. I know it's perhaps not considered creative, but I think things like Women and the World Festival with the BBC last weekend, online, Global Women's of the World, there's the expert, and accessible to people, reaching out to people, interesting people, talking, sharing ideas, trying to make it obvious you're not alone. You might feel alone, but there are people out here. So we're sort of gathering around, listening to, watching things online. Festivals, conferences. There's a conference going on now, Heart of Glass. Some people are making work. Some people are making work on telly. I'm not making any work. Well, I'm making a cookery demonstration, so that's quite good. I've got some chilies here. Oh, I've got some great chilies. So there are various ways of communicating and talking and sharing ideas and reaching out to people. That's what's going on at the moment. I think a lot of thinking is going on at the moment. I'm certainly thinking a lot. How can things change? What can get better as a result of this? Got a marvellously wise pomegranate here who's going to come up with some really good ideas shortly. The final question. How do we embed and share these solutions, ways of being and organising, now and in the future? Well, the thing is, there are really creative solutions going on. I've only just given you a taste of them. And very creative people and brilliant ideas and real experience and skill. For instance, I'm now an older person. As an older woman, start to be marginalised even some more. But people like me, older people, very often have a lot of experience and wisdom. But we need to be seen and we need to be in the room as equals or at the table, whatever you say. There's an amazing quote by Abigail Disney. She's one of the heirs of the Disney empire. Amazing woman, a philanthropist and businesswoman, and a great sort of activist to change the way things are, to change the status quo. This quote was told me by the wonderful Elana Mitchell of Wunderbar, and I'm going to read it. This is what Abigail Disney said. I think that we should all be wondering not just how to get ourselves to power, but how to change the power itself. I think that if we strong-arm our way into the same room with the same roles, we're all going to get the same results. We have to change the room. So it's no good sitting around the edge of a tray wearing very similar sorts of clothes, looking inwards, talking about what can we do? We have to look out and we have to connect more and more and more and listen to each other. And I'm just going to end by showing you the most amazingly creative solution of all, a running buffet. So here we are. This is how we embed it. We have many running buffets and creative dishes. So we've got a very lovely pizza there, some pita bread, tasty, exotic hummus, nibbles, very nice salad. Another nice salad. See, there's great variety here. This is a marvellous dish. That's the butternut squash, or spiced as an orange. That's me. It's my contribution. A very wise pomegranate. A little bit past its best, but still got plenty to offer. Wonderful fruit platter. Everybody enjoying being together. Pineapple and some tomato. Oh, here we have at the end the Melton Mowbray pies and the sausage rolls and the cheese rolls, and they've all come to see. I don't know what's happened to the smoked salmon. I think it might have been eaten, but they've come to join in, and as you see in the running buffet, it's a great variety of voices and ideas, sharing ideas and creative solutions. So that's one idea. Change the room.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you,
Thank you so much. How can you not sit there and watch that and go, I'm just going to have some fruit and nuts and grapes? Yeah, shout out to Bobby Baker. Bobby's in the chat. Also, apologies about the jittery video at the end there. There's been some internet problems in Liverpool, apparently. But I wanted to do a special thank you moment to Bobby Baker because she's been really important in my life. I think I first saw her work in 2003 at the National Review of Live Art in Glasgow, and I saw a piece that was called, I think it was called Box Stories, and it really, I can remember it perfectly today because she was building this whole world out of flour and cornflakes and describing the building of a new world when just before the invasion of Iraq. And it really actually got me and upset me, and I've been a huge fan of Bobby's work since then. And obviously I've been really privileged to get to know her. She's mentored me, she's given me advice. Obviously, the big show at the Wellcome Collection, Mental Illness and Me, I saw just after I've had another admission to a mental health hospital, connected with that work beautifully. So I just wanted to say, Bobby, thank you for, like, you've pioneered the work, for so many other younger artists to be able to do what we're doing. So big up you for that. Thanks.
Yeah. And I just wanted to reflect on, like, both Marjorie and Bobby's films. Like, it's really refreshing to hear how Bobby recounts her artistic career in such stark and simple terms. I feel like we often revere the work so much, but kind of abstract it from the person. And I really appreciate the vulnerability of what Bobby was sharing with us, particularly as an older woman. And, we were talking about this because, of getting older and all that kind of thing. And you? No, never. And we were saying how ageism is a real blind spot particularly in Western society, and in Asian society, then quite often Asians revere age and they revere elders, but this also causes a lot of problems and a lot of pressures for younger folk too. So I guess one of the things that I really respect about what Bobby has done is, like, to create those intergenerational spaces and to hold that as a thing and just be like, yeah, we're all together, we're of different ages, we come from these different places in terms of our outlooks in life, but yeah, we can still have those conversations together, and that's really important. And so, yeah, pioneering and
really thinking about power and who has power, and whether our work should be about, changing the room or getting out of the room, but not just trying to get in there, because it can, I know it can be so, we just don't feel like we belong there so often. So yeah, I love that.
Definitely. So yeah, building our own buildings. Anyway, so speaking of which, in episode 1, we had a presentation from the brilliant network Migrants in Culture, and we're gonna see a little presentation from them now with a bit more information about their latest project, which is called the Culture New Deal. Play that video, Carl.
Okay, cool. Ready? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're here today to represent Migrants in Culture. We're a network of migrants organising for a cultural sector that is accountable to migrants, people of colour, and all others being impacted by the hostile environment. If you're unfamiliar with what the hostile environment is, it's a cornerstone of the UK's racist immigration regime, which forces doctors, teachers, landlords, and all employers to run immigration status checks as proxy border agents. This means that the hostile environment brings borders into our daily lives, seeds a culture of fear and distrust, and results in violence and death, which includes the deportation of the Windrush generation.
And 2 weeks ago, we as Migrants in Culture shared with you at this conference a video proposing a Culture New Deal. And this Culture New Deal is inspired by the Green New Deal, which is a campaign and a kind of a resolution of the American Senate, which tackles climate change, but very importantly in its relation to poverty, income inequality, and racial discrimination. And we kind of started that because we felt that the speed of planning for like a recovery from COVID in the culture sector is currently being led by, and kind of that's why it's privileging the imagination of white people and non-disabled British citizens who have a secure status and a lot of institutional power already. And there's a sense that, I guess, this kind of feeling of wanting to go back to business as usual, and like as if this business or this normal had ever been working before. And for us, we wanted to kind of focus collectively and explore what model a culture sector actually could look like, and especially what it could look like if it was kind of like centering and led by marginalized communities, and that those communities were leading the recovery. And I guess we got quite excited by this vision of like just burning everything down and starting afresh, that we kind of didn't realize how exhausted we actually were, and how exhausted everybody else around us is, and the people that we'd want to doing this work with as well, and especially the voices that we need to center at this moment and listen to. And so instead of like pushing the rise up hats that we shared last week, I guess we took out some time to reflect on our own capacities and our position as migrants, and what actually could this culture new deal look like if it was centering a migrant lens, like the kind of the focus that we have as migrants in culture.
So a recovery from a migrant lens. For us and for many other migrants and allies that we've been working with, especially through some workshops at the start of this year, we think that a culture new deal would take cultural workers, cultural institutions and cultural funders to be actively transforming their compliance with a current hostile environment towards building a solidarity environment. So what does a solidarity environment look like?
We've got some really high-end graphics for you there, guys. It's just like...
Sorry. I hope it's not backwards when you're seeing it.
Oh shit, yeah.
So first, a solidarity environment means, one, protecting and supporting migrant cultural workers. This means refusing to share any data with the Home Office, giving mandatory provision of legal support for migrant staff and contracted freelancers, enforcing codes of conduct that protect migrant safety in the workplace, including safe ways for migrants and POCs to report abuse and discrimination, and to end outsourcing.
And solidarity environment could also mean that like the kind of culture sector that is already engaging in like a lot of anti-racist and anti-xenophobic work is kind of organized and educated and resourced properly. So that could involve like providing like a mandatory review of the arts curricula to decolonize syllabi. Could also mean like regular and continuous anti-racism and xenophobia training. It could mean legally and politically educating HR managers so they can navigate unfair immigration and work-rights policies. Because like, for example, from the survey that Migrants and Culture did last year, we found out that a lot of senior members of staff think that they are doing this work, but that they're not actually doing it, or it's not actually like really happening. So kind of prioritizing that would be really important.
A solidarity environment also means mobilizing the skills and resources of the culture sector towards migrant, racial, and social justice. So it doesn't mean always making art about migrants. It also means supporting, funding, being allies, being actively participating in a national migrant movement that is campaigning to end the hostile environment, and recognizing that migrant rights is very much a part of an abolitionist move towards against the criminalization, incarceration, detention, and deportation of Black, Brown, and communities of color. It means pushing for the reform of a national curriculum to include the history and legacy of British colonialism, which thankfully through the work of BLM and this current moment is gaining some force. And thirdly, which we don't hear of very often, but some migrant organizations are now lobbying for this, creating new narratives that decriminalize work so that livelihood, well-being, and safety is unlinked from citizenship, so that all migrants can work safely and legally in the UK. So, those are a few...
go on for hours, can we? Yeah.
Those are a really few basic things. Those are like...
So this is not an exhaustive list.
Yeah.
Like, this is just what we have been like,
This is basic list of things that we believe would build a solidarity environment for migrants and people of color, and which need to be part of a building block of a much wider cultural New Deal that also intersects and coordinates and connects with our disabled, queer, working class POC colleagues to ensure that we really have something robust and from the ground about the kind of future that we want, or we're all leaving the arts.
Yeah, so if you're also interested in leaving the arts, finally, so we're kind of at the moment with Migrants in Culture, we're like a small unfunded collective, so we're also spending a lot of time organizing ourselves differently and thinking about how we want to operate in the future. And we're kind of, we really welcome still anybody who wants to feed into your perspectives on this culture and the ideal, whether you think it's, the wrong approach, whether you think it's good, whether you feel something's missing, and how we can build that solidarity environment for migrants. You can subscribe to our newsletter on our website. We can keep you updated about any kind of like public, Zoomy, whatever kinds of meetings that we might be having and next steps. I guess, the website could be in the chat maybe as well, but the website is migrantsinculture.com, and you'll find like loads more information about the survey we did and other stuff there as well. Thank you so much for having us at this conference.
And good luck to everyone out there, and lots of love and solidarity with everyone.
I wonder how many people in the arts are currently thinking about leaving the arts right now. Are you having that thought, Cecilia? Anyway, thanks to Migrants in Culture, to Rosalie and June Lin. I really appreciate the moment to be honest about the super ambitious plans that they'd had and the slow creeping reality over the time of the conference that the Labour involved in doing. Hello. Cecilia's having a few problems. I'm going to keep going. So where did I get to? So obviously they'd had this big plan and world events had changed, so they'd not been able to get as far along as they'd wanted to. But I think that this kind of relaxed and flexible approach is the future, and obviously that's like super hard to do and super challenging, finding these new ways of doing it. But as everyone keeps saying, we can't go back to business as usual. So I think Migrants in Culture are one of the examples of new ways of working. So definitely search Migrants in Culture and join their mailing list. And if you run an organization, really help resist this racist, hostile environment that Theresa May has started and continues. Hi. You're right.
Yeah, did you talk about leaving the arts yet? Or
we've already left the arts.
I was just leaving the arts then, wasn't I?
You left and you're now either a panda washer or a lawyer. And obviously, could somebody please fund Migrants in Culture? I'm saying like maybe 150,000 to start with. That'd be great. Thank you for sorting that out.
We have they've invited us to a meeting next week, and it's going to be pretty embarrassing if we just turn up empty-handed, right? So in the meantime, whilst you get onto your PayPal or your Monzo or your international money transfer system, whatever the thing is that you like to use, we thought we'd give you a bit more Bella time.
So apologies in advance because all these videos are the wrong way round. So I got Bella as a result of 2 mishaps. So the first was that there was a fire in our building and none of the fire alarms went off. I've been asking the landlord every time I saw him for a cat. And when I saw him post-fire, I burst into tears. And the combination of his negligence, his inability to deal with tears, and the very reasonable nature of my request meant that he had no excuse. The second was that I was unable to travel to make a scheduled trip to Brazil because of some back and forth with the US embassy and them holding on to my passport. So my mum said, get the cat now. I wasn't sure about how having a cat would work because I travel a lot for work. But my mum said the cat could be an excuse to travel less, which I'm kind of desperate for. And then, we had a pandemic. And she is literally the only other living creature I have had any kind of physical contact with for, well, it will be 93 days by the time you watch this. My mum thought Bella would be a sort of mental health panacea, which is dangerous. And this thinking very swiftly evaporated within the first week of having Bella. She wasn't eating or pooping, and I was the most stressed my mum had ever seen me be. The night we took her to the vet, I couldn't find her for half an hour in a 1-bedroom flat. She was in a drawer. It hailed, and there was a gale, and I had a panic attack. And when we got back, both of us were just in different bits of the flat, totally exhausted.
Oh,
But
great.
she had a poop that night. Look, she's washing her bumhole. Anyway, she had a poop that night and ate a little, and we built from there. On the days when her tray is really stinky and I don't want to clean up after her, I try to remember the feeling of relief flooding my body the first time she took a shit and I had to clean it. Look at her.
Hello.
Hi. Turns out you can't change a nappy in 2.5 minutes. I need to wash my hands.
Do you want me to scroll for you?
Sorry?
Do you want me to scroll for you?
No, it's fine. I've got it.
Cool. Good.
Thank you, Bella, again. Thank you, Selina. What creative ways of being and organising are being made now in response to COVID-19? Well, as we all know, COVID is affecting all parts of the globe. And I think, we've tried to make this a global conference. We haven't got there's nothing from South America, and COVID is going super rampant there now. So we acknowledge we've not got that right. But we've had Bamanya, who's been the very first video we showed, using everyday materials, turning trash into ingenious, useful tools for each other. We've had AM Kangiza highlighting the ways in which Indigenous, First Nation and other marginalised folks need to be centred and their expertise in environmental justice movements.
Yeah, indeed. And in the context of waking up to racism and Black Lives Matter during COVID, it was great to have No White Saviours. And, the very public nature of their campaigning work is ever more important right now, as well as Young Suk Choi, who, through their piece Unapologetic Coughing, creates spaces to explode these sorts of racialized myths about coronavirus and continue to challenge all of these long-held views about what is acceptable or unacceptable to eat. And I feel like the intimate conversations that Hwa-young and Youngju and Ahreum had is also another kind of layer and perspective on that.
Also, thinking back to last week's episode, how we began with Dr. Emma Jung. So this seeing and seeking of truth and bearing witness about what is happening, particularly in the UK, but also, around the world, and not turning away from what's happening, and then finding the support and the creative ways through this, and thinking about how to this link between Newham as a borough with a high proportion of black and brown people disproportionately affected. How does that link with Black Lives Matter? How systemic racism is affecting people under COVID, and how that links, back to the activism of Cecilia and Esenam. And also we are layering up all these different struggles.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to also highlight this process of mapping and collecting energies and histories and things like that. So, for example, with Lois Weaver's sort of A to Z process that she shared with us in episode 2, and how, she talks about intimacy and assembly and tenderness and so many different words and important principles. And then also, of course, we had Sin Hao Cheng in episode 1, and they showed this beautiful work, which is about, recollection, I suppose, and really excavating history and putting it all together today so that we can make sense and feel it.
Yeah. So when we were putting this all together, we spoke a lot about how radical practice is shared and how we learn from the past battles that have been won.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important, because to win in the future, I guess we need to understand what sorts of tactics and methods of support can actually work. And then we try and develop the tools and methods that we need right now. So it's really great to see that artist Jessie Presley Jones has taken the time to listen to the knowledge of Irish activist Máirín de Burca, and they're a living legend, and we've got this video with them.
Hit it, Carl.
This is personal liberty, aren't they? Personal rights, that's not private property, fundamental rights. Do they mean page 40, I wonder? Maybe they mean page 40. Always handy to have, because it wasn't just the women's thing. There was Article 44, do you remember? Article 44 in the Catholic Church. So it wasn't always just on the women's thing. But generally speaking, I admire the document.
Did you?
I do, because you were able to, it set down parameters, if you like. And once it was set down, then you were able to use it.
Yeah.
To improve things. We did it. I go sometimes to talk to the students, the law students in UCD, and there was a woman there who fought the tax, the married woman's taxes. I wasn't quite sure exactly how they worked, but it was obviously anti-woman anyway.
Yeah.
But she was able to do that, the contraceptives, everything kind of flowed from that document. It was a document that allowed people. I mean, they don't have that in Britain.
No.
So it's all very amorphous. Like nobody knows quite what you're...
Yeah, you have to be an expert in law.
You do, and you don't know quite what... Like this lays down things that you are entitled to.
Yeah.
Okay?
And aspirations.
Yes, and you can then work with that.
And do you remember the occasion of getting it?
Of buying it? No, I don't. I don't even remember why I got it. I suppose it was one of the abortion things. I found that very depressing. The campaign to.
The 1983.
Yes, that was very. I remember waking up the next morning when I heard that it had been defeated or it had been passed. I can't remember which way it went, but it was, and I remember thinking, I'm living in a society that I don't have any sympathy with. And this is the first time it had hit me, even though, the society we live in is far from perfect, but you have a certain connection with it. But I remember feeling totally alienated that morning. Totally. Never think that, a few years down the line.
No.
Yeah.
How did you feel after the last referendum then?
So elated. And kind of proud of Ireland. I did too after the marriage marriage thing for gay people, and I felt proud of Ireland at that. And then when we got the other thing as well, you sort of felt doubly proud. It was full of hope and joy, and I suppose too, people of my generation who had a certain beliefs were so used to being defeated. You fought the good fight, but you knew you were wasting your time, really. But to win a couple of them, one after the other, it was something else.
So, in terms of this kind of idea about kind of what creative solutions people have done before to survive, I was wondering if you could say something about the activism around housing that you were so involved with.
Yeah, well, it was that point kind of when we had kind of civil disobedience in a way, but doing it, not doing it in a way that pointed out how bad the laws were and how against working people the laws were, and that it was perfectly legitimate to break laws under those circumstances. So that was why we kind of went into putting people squatting. We would. It wasn't ever sort of a mass movement. It was to break the laws to show how restrictive and oppressive the laws were, that you could have lashings of empty property and still have people on the streets.
And how did you actually kind of break in?
Well, we just broke in, literally broke in, and we had enough people on the books to do the place up and things like that. But most of the people that we got in were kind of semi-politically aware people. They would have been homeless, but they were the ones who said, "Yes, we'll do this," But it was worthwhile doing, I think. And then, of course, it was out of that the Juries Act came.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you were squatting, as long as the guards didn't know your name, they couldn't break in and take you out. They had to go in for a named person. And this, of course, was a bit of a disability to the guards. So they came up with something which was called the Forcible Entry and Occupation Act.
Right.
And under that, you didn't have to know their name. You could just break in and haul them out.
And do you think that people, say activists now, can learn from that?
Yes, I think they can. The one thing that I always regretted, and I'm too old now to do it, but is to take a case for a squatter based on that. Because that doesn't give private property overall power. It says that it has to be I could read it out for you if I could find it, but it has to take into account the common good. So that's why I admired this document. And I went down to Apollo House the time they were occupying it, and I said, stay in and challenge that. Because nobody could fight and say that putting people into property was not for the common good. I bet you they'd win the case. They mightn't win it in the High Court, but I bet you they'd win it in the Supreme Court. I bet you they would.
So this idea of the common good, do you think that's a really important idea then?
Absolutely. I mean, under that, you can fight almost anything. And certainly you can fight homelessness under it, because it's not the common good that people should be out in the streets. I bet you you'd win it, and I'm only sorry I'm not young enough to do that. The state accordingly guarantees to pass no law attempting to abolish the right of private ownership or the general right to transfer, bequeath and inherit property. The state recognises, however, that the exercise of the rights mentioned in the foregoing provisions of this article ought, in civil society, to be regulated by the principles of social justice. It's out there. And no one has ever sort of, with the homeless, it's sitting there waiting. The power of civil disobedience is limitless. It really is. If the population decides that something is wrong, and they are going to defy it, they're going to break the law to defy it, there's very little can be done about it unless you go in for mass murder.
Yeah.
How do you defeat people who are peacefully protesting if you're in a civilized society?
And what did you think of the more recent kind of homeless crisis in Ireland? I mean, could you connect that back with your prior experience?
Yes. Well, you see, somewhere along the road, and I don't know how it happened or how it was allowed to happen, they stopped building social housing. They just stopped. I mean, in the hungry 40s and 50s, when there wasn't a halfpenny to spare, you would see a thing on the papers at the end of the year. Last year, the local authorities built 10,000 houses. Every year you'd see that. Now the figure varied, but it meant that the pool was being added to every single year, and that stopped. Then on top of that, they started to sell them off, which was the biggest disgrace. I do believe, as far as housing was concerned, that was the biggest disgrace that ever happened, because this was public property. People had paid for this with their taxes. And the idea was, the reason they were paying for it with their taxes was to house the homeless. No other reason. And when you bought your house, first of all, you bought it at a hugely reduced rate. You weren't paying the market price. After 5 years, you could sell it on the open market. Those houses went from about, I don't know what the tenants were paying, say they were paying £5,000. In 5 years, they went to the market price. I mean, that was a scandal.
That's what happened in Britain as well.
We took it from Britain, but in Britain it was Maggie Thatcher. Who would use her as an example of social legislation? Well, I have great faith in the young people, and particularly the young people of Ireland, because I saw them, with the two campaigns. And one of the things that really cheered me, the day the judgment came in that awful case in Belfast, and I was so angry. And again, Facebook is marvellous, because it only came up briefly. It said, we're all going to the spike. And I said, well, if they're all going to the spike, I'm going to the spike. And I went, and the young people there were terrific. And the young men with them. Now they were with girlfriends and things like that. But I was so heartened, really heartened. So I've great, I think what's going to happen is that the young people will take over, and they will shape, if you like, the post-Covid Ireland in whatever way, because you see, their life is before them. They want to do things, they want to go places, they want to, have relationships, and in order to do that, they'll have to work with COVID. So they will come up with solutions. You and I, well, maybe not you, but certainly I, gone past that. But I would love to live long enough to see how they do it. Because do it they will.
So good.
Yes, some Máirín de Burca energy.
I want to go and be her friend. She's so cool.
Yeah, thank you very much to Jessie Jones for making this film. And yeah, definitely thank you, Máirín de Burca, for all of that activism and rage and being rowdy. And we were talking about how she was involved with the Irish women liberation movement and how that's super inspiring. It's not really a part of history that I know much about, but thank you, Jessie, for sharing this, and Máirín for doing this work. I love this phrase, I'm living in a society that I don't have sympathy with. Sounds familiar, right? And that, Máirin's not going to stand for it, not going to stand for the status quo, just going to get out there and change it.
And I love that they don't sit around politely asking for change, that the understanding that the power of civil disobedience is limitless. And, you know, the quote that is overused is that, you know, well-behaved women rarely make history. It's from the suffragettes. But we are now living in a time when civil disobedience is really vital. And for so many marginalized and oppressed folks, you know, to be out there doing that with the support of allies, like she, you know, like she says, is vital work. But I think, like, yes, 100% that all day, but also, like, we've got to be realistic about that. Shouldn't be rosy-eyed about it. Like, when you're coming up against, you know, the Garda or the British state, you know, it's serious hard work. And, like, you know, Máirín went to jail, and that's, like, serious. So we've got to think about care of activists and how we care for ourselves whilst we do this thing, and again, you know, fold these things together.
Definitely. And that's why I guess one of the things that we wanted to sort of make sure that we talked about is not only the things that we are doing in terms of tactics, but also the environments that we're creating that kind of like backs up the actions that activists and people are doing within different communities. Because it's all too easy for us as in the younger generation, as the younger generation, to take it for granted that those changes were done and took place without pain and violence. So, you know, we've been thinking a lot about time, history, and the future, and how we're connected to the just different generations who've come before us, and also how we're hoping to pay it forward. Are you looking at something?
I'm having a little thinking moment, because I'm wondering whether what we actually need is, in like every city and town, is like a statue.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like some pioneering Ghanaian activists, and some pioneering Irish activists, and some pioneering Korean activists, that
women activists, right?
Yeah, you know, like women and trans folk, and just the, you know, the real pioneers, so that
disabled activists,
so that young people can look up to them as idols and go like, wow, that person changed the world. I want to be like that person.
Since we've got all these empty plinths, right?
Exactly, we've got some space at the moment. I reckon if we call our mate, let's call Darren from the Arts Council and say, mate, can we have 2 million, commission loads of amazing sculptors, tell these stories? You're going to call him right now, aren't you?
Come call him.
Cool, brilliant. And then we can, like, you know, work with local communities, think about, you know, what, like, idols they want, you know, social justice warrior idols they want. It's great. Like, yeah, let's do it.
We'll just do it after the end of the show. Next long piece. During the next long piece.
Yeah. Let me just do some childcare first, and then we're on it.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
What is next, Cecilia?
Okay, so we're going to change pace slightly. So the next piece is a piece by an artist from St. Helens, Alexis Maxwell. It's unapologetic and fierce and visceral. It's an animation that's made in response to the murder of George Floyd. So we wanted to share this content warning from Alexis. This piece discusses racism, violence, death, and recent events regarding Black Lives Matter. Racial slurs are used throughout. Much of it will be emotionally challenging to engage with. So anyone triggered by audible gasping, please avoid watching. Thank you. Please play the video, Carl.
I'm scared to speak up. Scared to hear about the race card, words invented to oppress black opinions and black thoughts. Because while you're defensive and fighting for your right to say nigger, your free speech, there are people of colour fighting for their right to breathe. You say, I'm sorry, I'm not educated, I can't speak up on this. Then arm yourself with knowledge and take to the streets against injustice. the same people tweeting to say how an innocent man has died are the people who say it's fine, America's so far away, America's a different country, Americans are backwards to think that's okay. Don't you know the only difference between America and the UK is that there aren't as many guns in hands to end lives? Instead of shooting, it's a beating. Instead of finding someone bleeding out on the curb, they're being curb stomped by the people sworn to protect them, and that shit doesn't make the news because we want to pretend our country is above that. Turn a blind eye to all the black deaths in police custody, or the black men who walk past an officer with their head down, shoulders hunched, trying to look like less of a threat because for some reason the colour of their skin is perceived as a personal attack. They can't resist, can't rebuke, can't talk back, and there's a word for that. Whenever someone says microaggressions and unconscious bias, we're scoffed at. We're sensitive, special snowflakes trying to call you racist. Nobody's trying to call you racist. We're trying to help you avoid that slippery slope that starts with you thinking black men are intimidating or black women are aggressive and ends with you calling the police on someone for writing the check. Because we know it's not your fault that since childhood you've been force-fed these stereotypes. But you're all grown up now, so it's time to take a deep look inside, identify any problematic thoughts that occupy your mind, and instead of saying, I'm not racist to defend your pride, have the courage to admit you were wrong and change your mind. We can't just sweep the problem under the rug and say the house is clean. This house is a hellhole. It doesn't help that people in the house want to make their shitty opinions known. You say it's just a few bad eggs, a few idiots who don't know better, but those bad eggs are our police, our leaders, our CEOs, our school teachers. Those few bad eggs aren't locked away indoors. They're in positions of power, spreading their hate and their twisted ideals, and you tell me to stop making you feel bad for something you haven't done. I haven't done it either, and I still don't want to let them win. But when I speak up with my dark skin, it means nothing, because they think I'm less than dirt. If you speak up, you might have a chance to spread the word. They'll listen to you because they see a reflection of themselves and not a stranger or an other threatening their sense of self. But you won't speak up because it's not your place. Then whose place is it to better the human race? You want to retweet how sad it is that George Floyd died. Then the next time you hear someone talking about a dirty nigger or a packy, are you going to cut them down to size? Are you going to speak up and tell them that's wrong before the hate grows and spreads and infects everyone they know, before they climb the work ladder and make those ideals known, before they suffocate an innocent man who just wanted to go home?
Thank you, Alexis. I think both Cecilia and I need to take a moment now just to process what you have said, and yeah,
and everyone, if you do need to take a moment, then please remember that you can just do that, and you can pause the YouTube stream at any time. So yeah.
If this is the future of Black British artists in the UK, we're in really good hands, because that is it's really amazing work, and yeah, it's a real privilege to have it as part of this conference.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Alexis. It's so powerful, and yeah, there's so many Black and brown artists and activists and people who are fighting for a time when works about these subjects will no longer have to be made, and where the bodies of Black and brown people are no longer humiliated and tokenized and instrumentalized. So yeah, Alexis is a emerging performance maker and illustrator working with digital media. Hope you're out there watching. Shall we? Yeah.
Well, just to say, people watching this, reach out to her, commission her, support her, from all over the world, program this artist, because she is fucking shit hot. She's on it. Sorry, I swore.
Some cats.
Let's have some Bella and Selina, please.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Okay, we're investigating the tripod. Oh, over it goes. No, you're not much interested in this, are you? What? I think you're smart, you know. I think you know what you're doing. Absolutely determined that you will not be commodified.
we doing this morning?
I wanted to end these Bella vids with that. The first video I ever took of Bella. There isn't really a big finish to this series of videos. Bella is small, playful and cute. Small features, pointy ears, big eyes, big cheeks, a sort of genetic combo we're predisposed to feel protective of and loving towards. She is brave and gentle, never scratches or bites, lets me hold her and sometimes touch her paws and clean the gunk out of her eyes. She's also mysterious to me in some ways. There are precious differences between our species we cannot cross, and I love that. I think it's incredible. But I think, and why we love is complex and sometimes fucked up, I think the thing I really love about Bella, if I'm honest, is that when she's around, I feel like maybe I'm not a terrible person. She's wonderful and she loves me. So I can't be too bad. I am maybe okay. And I can just keep trying to be an okay person. And sometimes when things are very bad, that thought is enough. Go and cuddle your pet if you have one. They love you. And how amazing is that?
I can't believe that's the last Bella and Selina.
I know, I could watch it all day, and she's so right about. So as you know, Cecilia, I have a dog. She's not here right now, but she's my antidepressant. She gets me out of bed in the morning. She plays with me. She's kind of goofy. So everything that Selina is saying really resonates for me about the value of this companionship and this like non-human, whatever it is, relationship that, you know, Bella loves Selina, Doris loves me, and that makes me okay. And yeah, thank you so much, Selina, for making these videos. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Selina, and thank you, Bella, as well.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about making kin with humans and non-humans and not commodifying the non-humans that we interact with, I wanted to mention a video lecture by Donna Haraway, which is on the Anthropocene and Capitalocene, and it's on our reading list. You know, I couldn't resist mentioning the reading list.
Surprisingly. I mean, to be fair, you put a lot of effort into that, so definitely do go and dig into that, because there's a wealth of learning to be going on there.
Okay, so we're almost at the end for about 2020. What are you doing tomorrow, James?
What am I doing tomorrow? I'm gonna have a nap, and I'm gonna change some nappies, and I'm gonna hang out with Sunny, my daughter, and I'm gonna start an epic new project, obviously. What about you?
Cool. I'm gonna call up Touretteshero, because I quite like to get a slot on that spaceship of theirs.
You're gonna do an Elon Musk and go to Mars, but with Touretteshero instead.
With Touretteshero, only with Touretteshero.
Only with Touretteshero.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a really solid plan, to be honest.
But only if we can go into the future, because, you know, I feel like they're working at warp speed.
I mean, yeah, they already are in the future in terms of their.
But I'm going to have to catch up.
Yeah.
Somehow. So we do need to look into the future, don't we?
Yes.
We need to think about the final question that shaped With For About 2020, which was, how do we embed and share these solutions, ways of being and organizing now and into the future?
Yeah, so shout out to Stroll and Piker. I finally managed to say it right. True collaboration, co-curation, new models of working and being between institutions and community. Shout out to Jamal Jarrod on this delicateness, this celebration of blackness, and the more black icons that we need. Shout out to Martin O'Brien joining the Last Breath Society, sharing vulnerability and finding ways to live with this vulnerability and enacting care on a deep level. Disabled Avant-Garde, So this rejection of paternalism, this uncompromising nature, this radical self-determination, and this criticality in the art world, and specifically in the disabled art world. And Zwosi, like I keep going back to Zwosi's piece, how beautiful was that? This practical, pragmatic choreography that supports care and what care could look like. Beautiful, beautiful work.
Good points, James. I feel like I need to catch some of that wisdom.
Good luck with that.
Do that.
I think for us curators, this really wonderful thing is to see all of this work out there. We've had this open call, we've connected with other people around the world to share stuff with us, and that there's so many folks that have figured stuff out. So I really want to keep listening and researching and asking around to the people of color, the Indigenous folks, the LGBT plus folks, all the working class people, or my disabled community. Still got so much learning myself to do there, and so many other oppressed people that have just these amazingly beautiful life hacks and ways of organizing. So it's been such a joy to delve into that. But their ways shouldn't be compromised on. Enough trying to get this square peg in this round hole. Yeah, totally agree. And I totally have felt super honored to be sharing this space with you, but also having the opportunity to kind of do this research and connect with all these amazing activists and artists and people who are doing really amazing work throughout the world. And this question of co-option comes back time and again. I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that we can carry on moving culture to a space that centers and really centers the experience of marginalized communities. And for that not just to be a 3-week project right now, but just because the spotlight is on, for example, race inequality, but actually for us to keep on doing the work and be fully committed to it. So, I've really learned a lot about even more about disability activism and disability arts and all of that sort of disability justice actually. Then I've also been thinking a lot about accountability, and I don't really mean about a UK government race inequality commission. God, no.
Particularly, yes. Any of our non-UK viewers, you can look up the fund that has been created of late in the UK. But actually, individuals and institutions need to take tangible responsibility for the harms that they've done to trans folk and disabled folk and working class folk and people of color, and actually change the status quo. And there's a lot going on right now. We're all coping with a lot. We might be tired, but actually we are ready, and we've always been ready.
So we want to thank Ahreum Young and Youngju Kim,
Alexis Maxwell,
A.M. Kangiza,
Bamanya Bryan,
Bella with Selina Thompson,
Bobby Baker,
Cassie Thornton,
Cecilia Ashaley, and Esenam Drah with help from Ursula Reid and Jason Amu.
Delson Weeks with Vicky Hawkins and Blink Dance Theatre,
Disabled Avant-Garde,
Dr. Emma Young,
Fox Irving, and Lois Keedon.
Professor Rita Jackaman, Dr. Weham Hamadou, and Dr. Hannah Kinsler.
Jamal Gerard,
Máirín de Burca and Jessie Presley Jones.
Johanna Hedva,
Lois Weaver,
Martin O'Brien,
Marjorie H. Morgan.
Migrants in Culture,
Navilda Acosta and Fanny Sosa, Black Power Naps.
Neil Bartlett.
No White Saviors.
Kat Salas and Roy Amir Soleimani from Pica.
Touretteshero.
Xin-Hao Cheng.
Young Suk Choi.
Swati Mears Clark.
And special shout out to Kathy Cross. Kathy, really get well soon. Really, really get well soon. Sending you lots of love.
Hopefully. that's all of our contributors. Fingers crossed. Shout out to all of our partners and supporters. So we hope, I do hope this won't be the end of this format, and maybe we'll be back again in the future. So please follow us on social media, Vacuum Cleaner, at the Vacuum Cleaner, and at Cecilia We. Or sign up to our mailing list on our respective websites. So that's ceciliawe.com and thevacuumcleaner.co.uk. We also wanted to give a massive shout out to Carl, the wizard of YouTube live stream, and
hiding in the camera
somewhere, who has made all of this magic possible. Shout out to Pam, the Vision, Pam Vision,
the third eye vision.
And also shout out to all of those fighting institutional racism, systemic ableism, classism, transphobia, and James.
Shout out to all at Heart of Glass. Shout out to your local makers, creators who are doing all this work. Go out and buy from Black businesses, please.
Yeah, put your coins into the businesses and works of Black and brown and working class and LGBTQI plus disabled folk wherever you are in the world.
We are going to close hashtag with For About 2020 with 20 minutes of fierce beauty and nourishment. So Johanna Hedva is one of my favorite artists in the whole world. I've had the pleasure of inviting them before to an event I co-curated at the How in Berlin, and they nailed it, because they always nail it. And if you're not familiar with Sick Woman Theory, you should take some time to digest that essay, because it's awesome.
Yep, so Johanna's new record and LP is Black Moon Lilith in Pisces in the 4th house. It's a doom metal guitar and voice performance influenced by Korean shamanistic rituals, and it's going to be released in November in 2020 on Crystalline Morphologies. That's the record label, and yeah, it's a huge privilege to have them here. So this is we're going to share with you a reading from Johanna's new book, which is out later in the year, and it's a sneak preview of what's to come.
So, love and rage and spice to all our audience.
Thank you for watching, everyone. It's been lush to spend this time with you. Goodbye.
Hit it, Carl. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
A Decade of Sleeping. There's an epigraph by Clarice Lispector. Do not mourn the dead. They know what they are doing. Number 1. I sleep 10, 11 hours each night, and I sleep not like the dead, but as if I'm dying, as if I'm really living. When I fall asleep every time, since the first time I can remember falling asleep as a child, that claustral blackness crushing in, that blackness like a house, a heaven, a pit. I think I won't ever wake up again. This is it, and this will soon be was. I am gripped by a shock of death fear. Sometimes I bolt upright. For many years I'd cry out, but I don't want to die. And then I lie back down and sleep thickly, my sleep writhing with its own queer intelligence. I, suffocated by my dreams, face their coup, until noon the next day when waking finds me, like a slippery hand searching through black water. It pulls me up, light seeps in, and then a slow, cautious inhale. The day with a me in it is born. I sleep until noon and I cannot be roused. I tell people I work in the mornings, so must not be bothered. I sleep in the mornings, I work in the mornings. I am sleeping, I am working. In my dreams I work and work and work, the hard, pure work that must be done in that land. I have only nightmares. Like I said, I work hard. I murder people with my bare hands because they threaten me or those I'm supposed to protect. Sometimes I know the people in my dreams, the threats and my charges and myself, and sometimes they are all of them strangers, and in this way, equal parts anagogic and pathetic, I know them too. Sometimes there is no threat in people, but in the air. The sky is a breathing green. Every building hides a labyrinth. All the beds are not my size. Tunnels, bathtubs, they are not mine. I murder in slow, brutal ways. I tug fistfuls of hair until it leaves the dirt of its scalp, like weeds pulled out by the roots. I feel the cords of muscles underneath my fingernails as I scratch through skin slowly, working to get down to the quick of bones. I watch versions of myself drown while housed in the bodies of children, their flesh shredded by the waves, their little necks broken. I stand over their crushed bodies and I leave them to drown because it's only by breaking away that I can breathe. I boil my mother's bones in my dreams because she tells me to. She tells me, a black hole behind my shoulders whispering into my ears, that I must clean up our family's mess, make sure to wipe away the little bits of her grease that got stuck on the walls and the ceiling and the floor. In my dreams I am blessed with 3 cocks, and I use all of them with savagery and precision and wild, eager strokes. I tear people with them. I let myself be torn. I am relentlessly on my hands and knees in my dreams. I am always falling from a great height. I love my dreams for being so simple and clear, for their mercy. My sleep is good to me. I am good to my sleep. I treat it like royalty. I clear my schedule for its arrival. I insist on my sleep because someone's got to. Professionally, socially, this is hard. Are you available to meet earlier? The only free appointments are in the morning. We close at noon. The cheapest flights leave early. I'm sorry, I say I can't. I am not available. I am not available to do anything before noon because I'm sleeping, because I'm working, because I am then who I most am ever, and I will not give that up for anything, let alone for something as imaginary as money or time. I wrote most of this book, maybe all of it, maybe all of my books, in my sleep. Who's to say I am awake now? Are you? I write as soon as I wake, but it is through writing that I fully awaken. I open my eyes and don't speak, and the dreams of that sleep resist being usurped with all they have. They don't go quietly. I go to my desk. I don't speak so that they might continue to, and if I do anything other than go to my desk, my writing, the dreams are swiftly dethroned with a violent cut that is final, at least until the next night. You must understand it's not my sleep. It's that I belong to it. A poet asked me where I go during hypnagogic states, who I become. But that assumes I exist somewhere different as someone else at all. He asked me who I meet, what beings visit me, and the answer is everyone I've ever met, this life and others, and they never tell me their names. Names have no currency in dreams. They are revealed to be the false things they are. Names, words, money, time. The moon, magic, my mother. The weight of truth is given to some of these and not the other. Depends on the place, of course. In some places, the moon, magic, and my mother are sovereign. They are miracles, and they are also food. Regular, ordinary, nightly food. When Anne Carson began her poem, An Ode to Sleep, with the line, "Think of yourself without it," she must have been laughing to herself, a little smirk on her lips. She seems to me the kind of person who laughs to herself often. She's a writer of voids. Can't you see her, reader? Anne Carson squatting on my shoulder as I write this. Think of yourself without it. The trick of this sentence is to swap it and yourself. Think of it without yourself. And now we get close to the facility of this place, how ambidextrous it is, how shifting of its shape. There are selves, many of them, that I meet in my dreams as in life. They wander through the frame, appearing briefly, or they sit still at the edge, forms blurred in the background. I like the notion that everyone and everything in dreams is a representation of the dreamer. Not only am I the enormous black whale beneath the surface of the menacing black water, but I am also the water. I am the small, me-sized boat that is tossed in the waves, and I am the waves. What comforts me about this is not that it proposes a world composed of myself, to say that I abound and I am many, but rather that most of myself is alien to me, teeming and uncountable, that myself exists in the bodies of measureless strangers and as non-human beings, oceans, objects, animals, the weather. It makes myself feel very, very far away, permanently out of reach, further than light can travel. By the time the light of myself reaches these outer satellites of myself, the origin point will have died. There's only the trajectory toward, the trajectory away, and since the night sky is a land of the ghosts of stars, whatever there is that I am is but charnel dust, planetary tombs, and in this distance it's absolute and mundane, the fact of it heavy and belasting. In this I am anchored. It is no big thing. It's only many. Number 2. Minerva the Miscarriage of the Brain was not born as a book. She was not conceived at all. She sprang from my head motherless. She was crawling with ghosts. She was a school of them. In 2015, I noticed that some pieces from 5 years of work that I had been making shared DNA. In 2016, I started to collect these pieces into a lawless document that felt rowdy and foolish, like a person who says a word over and over and over until she is screaming it, and the meaning leaves both the word and the choice to scream it, and the air lives with sound, delirious not because of its fact of existence, but of the anarchic writ that existence is a mess. Both the document and the act of constructing the document felt like this. It made me feel young. A feat. This book is about how I am old. The book you hold in your hands bears little resemblance to that first manuscript, beyond the first and last pieces still placed first and last, anchors. All the guts in the middle have been seized and fondled and repossessed. I don't think it's my responsibility to know what it's become, what it is, only that it is, that it has been. There is sleep, there is madness and mysticism, the horror of living that is transcendent and banal, always both ineffably together, and waking up to this each day summons its own music. There is always the body, but the task is how to eclipse it, how to nebulize it, and how to cope when this inevitably fails. I thought she'd be my first book, something to be embarrassed by. I'd forgive myself for it. I'd leave it in the past. I screamed in rooms. I dragged my hand through water. I slept and slept and slept and sleep. I write. For the 4 years I spent trying to get her published, Minerva shapeshifted and was unmanageable, and I don't know if I was Odysseus and she Penelope, or vice versa. Like Odysseus, she ventured out into the world, maybe to fight a war, maybe seeking fame, maybe she just got lost. She odysseyed through 2 publishing adventures that went bust, and I waited and yearned for her to find a home. I spent that time weaving burial shrouds, other books, other words, and I felt bereft, and then suspicious when Minerva returned. I didn't trust it was she. Her face was different. She'd been gone so long. Or was it me who'd left home, laboring across the wine-dark sea, hooked by sirens, kidnapped by a sorceress, shipwrecked, until I finally found my way to a bed that didn't move? Books are little coffins. A professor of mine once told me that, and it is true. Of course, I was also Homer. Minerva taunted me. I asked friends for advice. Is this even anything? It wasn't just that she kept getting rejected and orphaned, but it was watching someone take herself apart, paint on a new face, and slither into skins that squirmed with many names, none of which were right. Should I feel awed at this capacity, or could I not trust her? Perhaps these are the same. The main reason I wanted Minerva to be published, why I kept sending her out each time it felt like dropping a child down a well that grew deep and long, was that I wanted to kill the time in my life that she documents. My decade began with a divorce from an abusive husband and a miscarriage caused by an inherited disease. It sailed on to an involuntary hospitalization and ended with the death of my mother. I never wanted to see Minerva again because of what I saw when I looked. "Ah, I get it," my first publisher said to me. "You abandon your work into the world." Number 3. Bataille said, "I hold the apprehension of God to be an obstacle in the movement which carries us to the more obscure apprehension of unknowing, of a presence which is no longer in any way distinct from an absence." I prefer words that mean more than one thing. Apprehension, an anxiety or fear that something bad will happen. Apprehension, understanding, grasp. These are the same. Number 4. For many years I kept a section on my CV called Appearances. It listed talks and lectures I'd given, and instances when I'd appeared in other people's dreams. The dreams came from friends, texts, and emails, their own words, each from a different person. I had a dream last night that I was saying how much I dislike Batman, and you touched my arm and said, "But he is sick." And then the rest of the dream was thinking about Batman and mental illness. This is one of my favorites, by the way. I had a dream about you, and there was a thin red seam running vertically through the middle of it like it was going to split. Are you okay? That is second dream of you with a splitting seam. First seam was in a whale belly. You were choreographing a dance piece with about 4 to 5 people in it. I was one of the dancers, doing contemporary dance moves on the floor, as I so often like doing, and would occasionally shapeshift into a snake. Not really a thin, slivery snake, but more like this. I had a dream last night that I had you in my arms, but you were not conscious. I guess it was normal to have mannequins of people you knew. And I danced you around and then pulled you close to my face and said, "Are you here?" And you said no. But you did this before in Amsterdam. And I said, "Are you okay?" And you said yes. I had a dream about you last night that was just a headline that said, "Naked performance artist steals university chancellor's pen, makes getaway on roof." I just dreamt that you shaved your head and transplanted some of the hair into a mustache. You had a tan suit on and were maintaining a personal space bubble of about 10 feet. We were at a joint funeral estate sale. If you'd have smiled, the mustache would have been compromised, so you didn't. You were in my dream last night. I don't remember much except it was about going back and forth in hallways, wanting to try on coats that were needed because it was cold, but there was a ride to an opera not to miss, so the hallways seemed too long. And somehow also being a security guard for cars. You were wearing red and holding this super long metal pole that went up out of my field of vision. I couldn't see what was on the other end of the pole, but it seemed to me that it was supporting some kind of structure, a structure that we were both inside of, but that was also invisible to us, either actually invisible or just itself very large. Anyway, you were just standing there holding this pole, and then I woke up. Number 5. How comforting that sleep is fugitive. How I've trespassed into the sleep of others, as my own has been infested. All these lives lived reciprocally, bound to each other, sweet. In those 10 years, how many of me were there? There were how many? I don't think the doom-hope axis is the only axis, because I don't believe in axes at all, and I don't believe in hope. There is no divine purpose other than the telos of nothingness and the war zone of sociality, but both make beautiful garbage, a choratic plenum. There's a tiny pocket in the universe's coat, and me and my language, like a miracle, live there. We sleep there. We make a small lump. Sometimes the universe slips us a few crumbs. Despite how cold it is, it can also be warm. Number 6. Minerva, I hope to never know you again. I will now watch you fade to black. I pray this black is one who sleeps in a bed that's not my own. See you soon.